You hear stories about surprise attacks, ambushes where the outnumbered win. But 20 miles west of Adrianople, on September 26, 1371, something happened that changed the Balkans forever. A Serbian army, some chronicles say 70,000 strong, marched deep into Ottoman territory. They were going to hit the capital, end the invasion, save Europe. Instead, Ottoman Ghazi warriors under Lala Shahin Pasha caught them at night by the Maritsa River. The Serbs were feasting. The Ottomans were counting. When dawn broke, the river ran red. Thousands drowned in their armor trying to escape. 2 kings died, Macedonia fell, and the road north lay open. How does a force, maybe 800 to 4,000 men, destroy an army 10 times its size? What happened in those hours before sunrise? And why did the survivors spend 600 years remembering it as the apocalypse? By 1369, most of the region between the Rhodope Mountains and the Balkans is Ottoman. They're pushing west. The Serbian Empire, which stretched from Albania to Greece under Stefan Dusan, is fracturing. Dusan died in 1355. His son Uros V cannot hold it together. Regional lords carve out their own kingdoms. King Vukašin and Uglješa controls Macedonia from Prilep. His brother despot, Jovan Uglješa, rules Ceres in the east. They watch the Ottomans advance. Byzantium won't help. Bulgaria becomes a vassal in 1366. The other Serbian nobles are too busy fighting each other. Uglješa sees the clock running out. The Ottoman forces in Europe are scattered. The capital is exposed. This is the moment. Vukašin leaves Shkodër. The brothers combine their armies. Sources clash hard on numbers. Serbian monk Isaiah, writing in the 1370s, claims 60,000 Serbs. Byzantine scholar Ionikos Chalkokondals, a century later, writes of 800 Ottomans. Modern historians, including John Fine, note the Serbian force was large, but nowhere near 60,000. Aleksandar Sopov points out that armies of even a few thousand were considered massive in this period. Ottoman chronicles, written later, claim 4,000 Ottomans faced 60,000 Serbs. The truth sits somewhere between exaggeration and propaganda. What we know, the Serbian army was substantially larger, probably 20 to 40,000. The Ottoman force under Lala Shahin was significantly smaller, perhaps 800 to 4,000. Numbers mattered less than what happened next. The plan: strike Adrianople 20 miles ahead while Murad is absent. Uglješa wants revenge too. 7 years earlier, in 1364, Ottoman commander Hati Ilbey ambushed a different coalition at this same river. That battle, sometimes called Serp-Sindigi, the destruction of the Serbs, saw crusading forces massacred at night. Uglješa knows the history. He marches anyway. His scouts report the way is clear. They reach Chernomen, today called Ormenio in northern Greece. It's September 25th. The village sits on the Maritsa's banks. Adrianople is 1 day away. Final push tomorrow. The army makes camp. The commanders know they outnumber any local Ottoman force. They've marched through enemy territory for days without contact. Confidence becomes carelessness. Some sources say they held a feast to celebrate the coming victory. Wine flows. Exhaustion from the march hits. By nightfall, the camp is sleeping. The heavy cavalry, the core of Serbian power, rests in full plate armor. That armor, Italian-style mail with splinted gorgets for neck protection, weighs 40 to 60 pounds. In battle, it's an advantage. In water, it's a death sentence. If you value documented Balkan medieval history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the updated 2025 Battle of Maritsa Wikipedia article, citing historians John Fine, Donald Nicole, and Alexander Mikaberidze, plus Konstantin Jiricek's Geschichte der Serben from 1874, still the foundational Serbian history text, and Sima Kirkovic's The Serbs from 2008, published by Blackwell, the authoritative Serbian medievalist monograph. These aren't surface sources, they're the academic bedrock. Now back to the information. Born around 1330, he tutored the young Prince Murad. When Murad became Sultan in 1362, Shahin became the first Beylerbey of Rumelia, the highest military governor in Ottoman Europe. He led the capture of Adrianople that same year. He knows Thracian terrain. He's fought Bulgarians, Byzantines, Serbs. His force is small. Sources give wildly different counts, but even Ottoman records suggest he's outnumbered at least 5 to 1, maybe 20 to 1. He sends trackers. They report the Serbian camp location, the size, the lack of guards. Shahin makes the call. Night attack. Under Shahin, Hachi Ilbey commands part of the force. Ilbey has experience with nocturnal raids. 7 years ago, he pulled off the Serp-Sindigi ambush. Jealousy exists between them. Ilbey will die mysteriously, possibly poisoned by Shahin, in 1365, one source claims. For now, they coordinate. Gazi Avranos, another Ottoman commander known for guerrilla tactics and rough terrain, joins. They move in darkness. Ottoman Akinci light cavalry travel fast, no heavy armor. Composite bows, curved sabers, they know the ground. Some carry 2 torches each, a psychological trick to make their numbers appear doubled. The forest around Chernobyl provides cover. The Maritsa's sound masks approach. It's past midnight, early morning hours of September 26th. The Serbian camp sprawls by the riverbank, tents everywhere. Fires burned low, men sleeping. The Ottomans position on multiple sides, then they hit. The Akinci charge into the camp from several directions at once. Serbs wake to chaos. No time to don armor. Weapons scattered, horses panicking. The first wave cuts through the tents. Fires spread. In darkness, soldiers can't tell friend from enemy. Some Turkish sources claim Serbs killed each other in the confusion. Historian Donald Nicole, citing Konstantin Jiricek, writes that both princes perished and their men were slaughtered in such numbers that the river ran red with their blood. King Vukašin and despot Uglješa try to rally. Impossible. The camp is already overrun. Within minutes, organized resistance collapses. The Serbian forces fracture. Thousands flee toward the river. Mail hauberks absorb water. Plate sinks. Men trying to swim in 40 pounds of steel don't surface. Others push forward, desperate. Bodies pile in the shallows. Those without armor make it partway across before Ottoman arrows find them. The cavalry that does reach the far bank reforms briefly, attempting a counterattack. The Ottomans, lighter and mobile, cut them down. Historian Harold Temperley writes in History of Serbia, published 1917, that after the battle, the Maritsa ran scarlet with blood. This isn't poetry. Rivers turn red when thousands bleed into them. The hydraulic reality of mass drowning and killing concentrates blood in water. Later accounts disagree on Ottoman casualties. Some say minimal. Others claim significant losses. What's certain, Lala Shahin holds the field. His force survived. The Serbian coalition is destroyed. Numbers again, thousands of Serbs died in the camp. Thousands more drowned in the river. Monk Isaiah, who finished his translation of Pseudo-Dionysius, the Areopagite, after the battle, added a personal comment. He wrote that Ishmaelites, his term for Muslims, spread over the entire land as birds in the air, slaying some Christians, sending others into slavery. The land became deprived of all that is good, people, beast, the fruit of all kind. There was no prince, nor leader or teacher among people, nobody to save them. Truly the living envied the dead. This wasn't dramatic flourish. Isaiah lived through it. Vukašin's son, Prince Marko, survives. He was not at the battle. 2 months later, on December 2nd or 4th, 1371, Emperor Uros dies childless. The Nemanjic dynasty ends. Marko technically becomes king of Serbia. The Serbian lords refuse to recognize him. He inherits only Prilep and a small territory in western Macedonia. By 1372, Đurđ Balšić seizes Prizren and Pek. Prince Lazar Rebeljanovich takes Pristina. By 1377, Vuk Branković grabs Skopje. Marko becomes an Ottoman vassal, date uncertain but likely within a year or two of Maritsa. He pays tribute, provides troops, his kingdom shrinks to a regional lordship. He'll fight for the Ottomans at Kosovo in 1389 and die serving them against Wallachians at Rovine in 1395. Serbian epic poetry transforms him into a tragic hero who resisted the Turks, but history records his vassalage. Macedonia falls under Ottoman control immediately after Maritsa. Lala Shahin's forces take Drama, Kavala, and Ceres in modern Greece within months. Parts of central Serbia become Ottoman tributaries. Bulgaria, already vassal since 1366, sees increased occupation. The Ottomans capture Sofia in 1383 under Shahin. He becomes governor there. The path north into the Danube basin and Central Europe lies open. What took Byzantium 1,000 years to build against northern invaders, the Balkan defensive depth, collapses in 2 decades. One battle shifted the calculus. Intelligence won half the battle before swords were drawn. The Serbs, moving through what they assumed was weakly held territory, dropped their guard at the worst moment. Historical sources, including those analyzed by Alexander Makaberidze in Conflict and Conquest in the Islamic World, note the Serbs attempted their own surprise attack on Adrianople, but were themselves surprised due to superior Ottoman tactics. Pre-dawn attacks exploit maximum confusion. Human circadian rhythms bottom out between 3 and 5 a.m. Reaction time slows. Decision-making degrades. Soldiers waking from deep sleep can't process complex threats. The Ottomans struck when the Serbs were least capable of organized response. Adding fire and noise amplified psychological shock. Men who never saw the enemy's real numbers panicked based on sound and flame. When the attack came, fleeing soldiers had 2 choices: stay and die, or cross and maybe survive. In armor, crossing meant drowning. The river eliminated the Serbian cavalry advantage. Heavy armored knights on horseback dominate open field battles. Dismounted in water, they become liabilities. The weight that protects in combat becomes the thing that kills. Archaeological evidence from similar period armor shows mail hauberks could weigh 30 to 50 pounds depending on extent. Add plate elements, breastplates, arm and leg protection, helmets, total approaches 50 to 70 pounds. Buoyancy in water is roughly proportional to displacement minus weight. A 180-pound man in 60 pounds of armor has negative buoyancy. He sinks fast. Composite bows allowed shooting while riding. Curved sabers enabled slashing passes. After the initial charge, they could withdraw, regroup, and strike again. Serbian heavy cavalry needed time to saddle horses, don armor, form ranks, time they didn't have. The tactical doctrine of 14th century Serbian forces emphasized shock charges by armored nobles supported by infantry. At Maritsa, they never formed for battle. Caught in camp, they fought as individuals, not units. Ottomans fought as coordinated groups executing a plan. Lala Shahin had decades of Balkan campaign experience. He captured Adrianople in 1362. He took Bruges and Plovdiv in 1364. Contemporary accounts by historian Dimitar Angelov describe large-scale enslavement of populations during these campaigns, with captives sent to Murad's camp in Anatolia. Shahin understood logistics, supply lines, and psychological warfare. The decision to attack immediately rather than wait for reinforcements showed tactical boldness. He assessed the situation, large enemy force, unguarded camp, proximity to key objectives, and acted. Vukašin and Uglješa, despite their intent to surprise Adrianople, failed to maintain operational security. They marched openly, they camped carelessly. Leadership failures compound in combat. Medieval chroniclers inflated figures for propaganda. Monk Isaiah's 60,000 Serbs served to explain catastrophic loss. Only a massive army could justify such devastation. Ottoman Chronicles, claiming 4,000 men, defeated 60,000 magnified the victory. Both sides had motive to exaggerate. Modern scholarship by historians like Alexander Sopov, citing Byzantine accounts in his thesis The Historical Visions of the Battle of the Maritsa from 2007, notes that for this period, armies of even a few thousand were considered large. Accurate counts were rare. Medieval armies didn't maintain rosters like modern forces. Estimates came from visual assessment. How many tents? How much space? How many supply wagons? A camp holding 20,000 looks similar to one holding 40,000 from distance. Archaeological evidence for specific battles is limited. No mass graves from Maritsa have been excavated. River drownings don't leave concentrated burial sites. Bodies wash downstream, scatter, decompose. The lack of physical evidence makes reconstruction difficult. What we can confirm, the battle happened September 26th, 1371. Location, near Chernomen village, modern Ormenio, Greece, by the Maritsa River, about 20 miles west of Adrianople. Commanders, King Vukašin Mrnjavčević and Despot Jovan Uglješa for the Serbs, Lala Shahin Pasha, Hači Ilbey, and Gazi of Renos for the Ottomans. Outcome, decisive Ottoman victory. Both Serbian commanders killed, Serbian army destroyed, Macedonia and parts of Serbia become Ottoman vassals. These facts appear in multiple independent sources, Serbian, Ottoman, Byzantine, and modern historical analysis. With Vukašin and Uglješa dead, and Emperor Uros dying 2 months later, no central authority remained. Prince Lazar rose as the most powerful Serbian lord in the north, but his authority was regional, not imperial. The fragmentation meant individual lords made individual decisions. Some chose vassalage, others fought until destroyed. No coordinated defense existed. The Ottomans exploited this systematically over the next 2 decades. Economically, Macedonia was wealthy. Prilep, Vukašin's capital, was a trading center. Sers, Ugljesa's seat, connected Aegean ports to the interior. Ottoman control of these cities meant control of trade routes and tax revenues. The silver mines at Novo Brdo, which the Ottomans would capture later, provided massive wealth. Territory wasn't just land, it was money. Culturally, the disaster entered Serbian memory as apocalypse. Epic poems developed over the following centuries. The Battle of Kosovo in 1389 became the central mythic event, but Maritsa preceded it. Monk Isaiah's phrase, "the living envied the dead," captured the psychological trauma. Oral traditions, recorded in later centuries, transformed historical figures into legends. Prince Marko, the real vassal king who served Ottoman sultans for 24 years, became in poetry a rebel hero who defied Turkish oppression. This disconnect between history and myth served a purpose. Under Ottoman rule, which lasted in parts of the Balkans until the 20th century, Serbs used epic poetry to preserve cultural identity. The poems couldn't change the past, but they shaped how people remembered it. Militarily, Maritsa demonstrated the effectiveness of light cavalry night raids against heavy forces. The Ottomans repeated variations of this tactic throughout their expansion. At the Battle of Nicopolis in 1396, they used infantry to lure Crusader heavy cavalry into exhaustion, then flanked with light horse. At Kosovo in 1389, mixed forces wearing down the enemy before decisive strikes produced victory. The doctrine wasn't uniquely Ottoman. Steppe peoples and earlier Turkic armies used similar methods, but Ottoman commanders refined it. Shahin's success at Maritsa established a template. Small mobile forces, using terrain, surprise, and speed, could defeat larger conventional armies if those armies relied on heavy armor and traditional formations. Some say they held a feast the night of September 25th. Others suggest they were simply confident and unprepared. The feast, if it happened, reveals something about medieval military culture. Ritual meals before combat were common. They built morale. They showed confidence. But timing mattered. Feasting a day before contact with an enemy capital, deep in hostile territory, showed either extreme confidence or catastrophic misjudgment. The Serbs believed Ottoman forces in Europe were scattered and weak with Murad in Asia Minor. They underestimated Lala Shahin's ability to respond. Intelligence failure, assumption failure, execution failure. All three killed them. At Chernobyl, it's roughly 100 to 200 feet wide, depending on season and location. September is late summer. Water levels would be lower than spring floods, but still substantial. Current varies by section. The riverbed is rock and gravel, not sand. Drowning in armor has mechanical specifics. First, entry. A man running in panic doesn't carefully wade. He plunges. Water rushes in through armor gaps, neck, arms, legs. Male absorbs water between links. Weight increases immediately. Second, buoyancy loss. Negative buoyancy pulls down. Fighting instinct says swim. But swimming requires horizontal body position and coordinated limbs. Armor restricts movement. Panic burns oxygen. Third, exhaustion. Even strong swimmers tire in minutes fighting armor weight and current. The Maritsa at night, with thousands pushing into the water simultaneously, created a drowning trap. Those who reached deep sections went under. Those who stayed in shallows became targets for arrows and blades. In 1385, he led offensives against Lazar of Serbia, but was defeated at the Battle of Plotnik. The Serbs, learning from earlier disasters, chose terrain carefully and fought defensively. Shahin retreated. 3 years later, in 1388, he suffered another major defeat at the Battle of Bilica against Bosnian forces under Vlatko Vukovic. These setbacks may have influenced Sultan Murad's decision to personally lead the Kosovo campaign in 1389. Dutch historian Michiel Kiel suggests Shahin died around 1388 near Kazanlak in central Bulgaria. His career shows victory at Maritsa wasn't luck. He was an experienced commander with wins and losses, who succeeded when enemies gave him opportunities and failed when they didn't. Hasi Ilbey, Shahin's subordinate at Maritsa, died in 1365, 1 year before Shahin's later victories. Some sources claim Shahin poisoned him out of jealousy over Ilbey's earlier success at the Sirp-Sindigi battle in 1364. The truth is murky. Ottoman internal politics were brutal. Successful commanders threatened each other's positions. Murad rewarded loyalty and results, but also managed rivals. Ilbey's death removed a potential competitor. Whether Shahin orchestrated it, or Ilbey died of natural causes, or other intrigue, we don't know. What we know, power struggles within successful military systems are common. The Ottomans were expanding fast, resources were limited, command positions were valuable, murder was a tool. If you value documented Balkan and Ottoman military history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. We use multiple academic sources including Halil İnalcık's The Ottoman Empire, The Classical Age, 1300 to 1600, the definitive work by the foremost 20th century Ottoman historian, and Abdülkadir Özkan's Sirmen Muharebesi, Entry in the Türkiye Diyanet Vakfi Islam. Encyclopedici from 2003, the standard Turkish academic encyclopedia, which actually questions whether Ottoman sources claiming a sudden raid are entirely accurate, showing even Ottoman scholarship interrogates its own nationalist narratives. Now back to the information. The strategic picture. After Maritsa, Ottomans held Thrace and Adrianople. They had vassal or direct control over most of Bulgaria. Macedonia was captured. Central Serbia was fragmented. Bosnia remained independent but surrounded. The Byzantine Empire controlled only Constantinople and small territories. The Danube River, 100 miles north, was the next major geographic barrier. Beyond that, Hungary. The Ottomans had momentum. More important, they had a system. Murad's administrative reforms created a stable base for expansion. Conquered territories were organized into provinces under beylerbeyis. Land was distributed to Sipahi cavalry in exchange for military service. The Timar system provided troops without constant cash payments. Tax collection funded the army. Devshirme, the levy of Christian boys converted and trained as janissaries or administrators, provided manpower and loyalty that bypassed traditional Turkish nobility. The empire was built to expand. Defeats like Plotnik and Bilica slowed, but didn't stop it. Victories like Maritsa and later Kosovo accelerated it. In 1377, he accepted Tvrtko I of Bosnia as titular king of Serbia. Diplomacy. He built alliances with Vuk Brankovic, who held territories in the south, and with the Balshik family in Zeta. When Lala Shahin attacked in 1385, Lazar chose the battlefield at Plotnik. Defensive position. Use terrain. Make Ottomans attack uphill. It worked. Serbian victory. But it bought only time. Murad recognized Lazar as the main threat. By 1389, the Sultan had amassed a major force. Kosovo Field, June 15th. The battle was larger than Maritsa, more evenly matched, and the outcome more ambiguous. Both Lazar and Murad died, but the Ottomans had reserves. The Serbs didn't. Kosovo broke Serbian military power permanently. Different battle, same result. Serbian independence ended incrementally, not in one event. Maritsa started the process. Kosovo continued it. Smederevo's fall in 1459 finished it. Let's return to the question of whether the Ottomans actually numbered 800. That figure comes from 15th century Byzantine scholar Leonikos Chalkokondyles, writing decades after the battle. He may have been citing earlier sources or making estimates. 800 seems impossibly small for a force that destroyed an army 20 times its size. Even with surprise, night conditions, and panic, some minimum threshold of attackers is needed to cover a camp's perimeter and prevent escape. If the Serbian army was truly 60,000, even 8,000 Ottomans would be outnumbered 7 to 1. More realistic assessments put the Serbs at 20 to 30,000 and the Ottomans at 2 to 5,000. Still lopsided, but within the bounds of tactical possibility given the conditions. The takeaway: Ottomans were significantly outnumbered. Exact ratio unclear. The disparity made victory remarkable but not miraculous. Good intelligence, bold execution, enemy mistakes, these explain the outcome better than supernatural intervention or absurd number ratios. But they were also deep in enemy territory, exposed if reinforcements couldn't arrive quickly. Mixed signals. The feast, if it happened, suggests confidence. The lack of sentries suggests either arrogance or exhaustion. When the attack came, the morale that sustained the march collapsed instantly. Panic spreads exponentially in confined spaces. One man running makes 10 more hesitate. 10 running makes 100 flee. Discipline holds morale. Training maintains discipline. The Serbian army, drawn from multiple regional lords, may not have had unified command structure or training standards. Nobles brought their own retinues. Coordination in chaos depends on established protocols. Those protocols exist through drill. Did the Serbian forces drill together before the march? Unknown, unlikely. Different lords, different methods, different loyalties. The Ottomans, by contrast, operated under centralized command. Shahin gave orders. His Ghazis followed. Unity of command translated to unity of action. Medieval battles often ended with negotiations to recover noble corpses for proper burial. That this didn't happen suggests either the bodies were unrecognizable, washed downstream, or the Ottomans deliberately prevented recovery. Denying an enemy's leaders proper burial adds psychological damage to military defeat. It signals total victory. It prevents martyrdom cults. The Serbian nobles who survived Maritsa couldn't even bury their kings. Monk Isaiah's lament makes sense in this context. Practical disaster. Lost army, lost territory, combined with spiritual crisis, lost leaders, no burial, no closure. The trauma was total. Erosion removes evidence. Drowning victims don't concentrate in burial pits like battlefield dead. They scatter. Modern development covers old sites. Agriculture churns soil. Finding artifacts from a 650-year-old battle in a river valley is nearly impossible without specific indicators like mass graves or weapon caches. The absence of physical evidence doesn't mean the battle didn't happen as described. It means rivers are effective at hiding history. The question of whether Shahin used deception, pretending to surrender, then attacking, appears in some sources. The Srpski Kod website, citing Serbian historical materials published May 28, 2019, claims the Turks pretended to surrender at night between September 25th and 26th, then attacked Serbs who were completely off guard. This detail appears in some accounts, but not others. It's possible. Fake retreats were common Ottoman tactics. Feigned surrender during a night operation seems odd. Who would accept a surrender in darkness without light to verify? But if Ottoman envoys approached Serbian sentries claiming surrender and those sentries allowed them entry or lowered vigilance, it could work. Alternatively, the surrender may refer to psychological tactics during the attack itself, where some Ottomans shouted they were surrendering to create confusion while others attacked. Without contemporary first-hand accounts, we can't verify. What matters? Deception was part of the tactical package. Modern historians estimate the Serbian army at 20 to 40,000. If half died in the camp and at the river, 10 to 20,000 casualties, that's a catastrophic loss rate. For comparison, the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, one of history's most lopsided victories, saw roughly 6,000 French dead versus a few hundred English. Maritsa's casualty disparity was likely similar or worse in percentage terms. The difference? Agincourt was fought in daylight on an open field with both armies formed. Maritsa was a night ambush of a sleeping camp. One was a battle, the other was a slaughter. Estimates for Ottoman losses range from minimal to significant. Some sources claim only hundreds died. Others suggest more than 1,000. Without detailed Ottoman casualty reports, we estimate based on tactical analysis. Night assaults are chaotic. Friendly fire happens. Some Serbian soldiers fought back effectively before being overwhelmed. Ottoman light cavalry, even with surprise, are vulnerable to close combat if cornered. The Serbs had superior individual equipment and training for melee. In small-scale engagements, a Serbian knight in full armor could kill several lightly armored Akinci before going down. The Ottomans won through numbers locally, multiple attackers per defender, and by preventing Serbian forces from consolidating. Losses occurred but were sustainable. The army stayed intact, that's victory. Overextension invites disaster. The Ottomans learned this lesson repeatedly. After Kosovo in 1389, they paused before pushing further north. After Nicopolis in 1396, another pause. Conquer, secure, integrate, then advance. Maritsa gave them Macedonia. That had to be digested. Prince Marko became a vassal, providing local governance under Ottoman oversight. Other Serbian and Bulgarian lords followed. The empire grew through a mix of direct conquest and vassalage. A flexible approach, whatever worked locally. Central control where possible, indirect rule where necessary. Warning allows some organization. Even minutes matter. Armies can form basic defensive positions in short time if alerted. The Serbian heavy cavalry, if they'd had 30 minutes instead of 30 seconds, could have mounted and armored. Mounted knights are formidable even in chaos. A cavalry charge, even a disorganized one, might have broken the Ottoman attack. The river. If the Serbs camped a mile from the Maritsa, fleeing soldiers wouldn't have drowned in such numbers. Casualties would still be high. Surprise attacks are devastating, but not apocalyptic. The combination of no warning and death-trap terrain produced the massacre. Change either variable, the battle becomes merely a bad defeat instead of total annihilation. They were products of military culture, leadership personality, and operational pressures. Vukašin and Uglješa were aggressive commanders. They marched deep into enemy territory for a decapitation strike. That's bold. Bold commanders take risks. Risk-taking creates vulnerability. The Serbian tradition emphasized heavy cavalry charges and fortified positions. Mobile reconnaissance and irregular warfare weren't cultural strengths. The Ottomans, coming from steppe warfare traditions and frontier Ghazi culture, excelled at exactly those skills. Cultural military styles clashed. The style better suited to the situation won. One last source detail to prove depth of research. Stephen Turnbull's The Ottoman Empire, 1326 to 1699, published by Osprey in 2003, describes how Murad I used mixed infantry and cavalry to defeat Serbian forces at Maritsa in 1371 and Crusaders at Nicopolis in 1396. Turnbull's work focuses on military organization and tactics, not just battles. He explains how ordinary soldiers formed front ranks to absorb charges, while elite troops waited in reserve, then how light cavalry flanked once enemy momentum died. This wasn't luck or chaos, it was doctrine. Trained, practiced, executed. The Ottomans won at Maritsa not because Serbs were weak, but because Ottoman systems were strong. Harold Temperley, in History of Serbia from 1917, wrote that the Maritsa ran scarlet with blood. Temperley was a British historian who studied Balkan sources. He cited Serbian chronicles and Ottoman accounts. The detail appears in multiple independent sources, which suggests it's not poetic invention, but observed fact. Rivers turning red from mass casualties is physically real. It requires enough blood volume in the water to change visible color. Thousands bleeding simultaneously produces that volume. The image stuck because it was seen. Survivors on both sides remembered the Red River. That memory transmitted through chronicles. 6 centuries later, historians repeat it because it's documented. Details like this anchor the story in reality. This wasn't myth. It happened. The strategic error the Serbs made was assuming Ottoman weakness meant opportunity. Murad was in Asia Minor. That's true. Most Ottoman forces were there too. Also true. But Lala Shahin held Europe with enough troops to matter. He had interior lines, shorter distances to concentrate forces. The Serbs marched from Prilep and Ceres, gathering along the way. That takes time and announces intent. Shahin had time to prepare. He positioned his force where it could respond. When the Serbs reached Chernomen, he knew. The intelligence asymmetry, Ottomans knew Serbian movements, Serbs didn't know Ottoman positions, decided the campaign before contact. Tactical surprise at the battle was just the final execution of strategic advantage built over days. He inherits a devastated kingdom, his father dead, his army destroyed, his legitimacy questioned by other Serbian lords who dismiss his claim to the throne. 2 months later, Emperor Uros dies, making Marko technically the king. But power isn't legal, it's practical. He controls Prilep and maybe a few surrounding towns. Prince Lazar controls the north. The Balshik family controls Zeta in the west. Vuk Brankovic takes the east. Within 6 years, even Prilep is threatened. Marko becomes an Ottoman vassal. He pays tribute. He provides troops to Ottoman campaigns. He fights at Kosovo in 1389 alongside the Ottomans. He survives that battle. He fights at Rovine in 1395 against Wallachia. He dies there, May 17th, age 60, 24 years as a vassal king serving the empire that killed his father. Serbian epic poetry remembers him as a hero who defied Turkish rule. History records his service to it. The disconnect shows how memory shapes identity under occupation. Drama, Kavala, Ceres, the cities controlling trade routes from the Aegean to the interior. Ottoman administered within months. Tax revenues flowed to the imperial treasury. Trade continued, but under new management. Christians could keep their religion, but paid jizya, tax on non-Muslims. Conversion to Islam brought advantages: no jizya, access to military and administrative careers, legal equality. Over time, significant portions of the Balkan population converted, not immediately, not universally, but the incentive structure pushed toward Islam. By the 16th century, Bosnia had a large Muslim population. Albania too. Macedonia and Bulgaria remained primarily Christian, but with Muslim minorities. Serbia largely stayed Christian, but under increasing pressure. The Battle of Maritsa started this process. It broke the political barrier. Once Ottoman control was established, cultural and religious change followed over generations. 1385, Plotnik, Serbian defensive victory, temporary reprieve. 1389, Kosovo. Inconclusive battle, both Murad and Lazar die, but Ottomans have numerical depth. 1390, Serbia becomes Ottoman vassal. 1459, Smederevo falls, last Serbian fortress captured. 88 years from Maritsa to total conquest, not instant, incremental. The Serbs fought, they won battles, but the trajectory was set. The Ottomans could absorb losses and return. The Serbs couldn't. Attrition favored the larger empire with the better system. Maritsa tipped the balance. Everything after was consequences. In the village of Chernomen, known today as Ormenio, local tradition speaks of burial grounds that were discovered over the centuries. No formal archaeological excavation has confirmed mass graves from 1371. But village records from Ottoman times mentioned fields where disturbed earth revealed bones and armor fragments when plowing. Farmers avoided those areas. Oral histories passed down over generations claim the fields were cursed. People heard sounds at night, cries, water rushing. The legends mix superstition with memory, but the persistence of the stories suggests something happened there that traumatized the landscape and the people who lived near it. The Maritsa River still flows past Ormenio. The current is strong in spring. In late summer, you can see the rocks on the bottom. 654 years after 70,000 men, or 30,000 or 20,000, depending on who's counting, march toward Adrianople to end an invasion. The water still runs. Red once, clear now. The stones remember.